Now, Gavin, what's your top story?
My story is about how one of China's biggest regional economies is being plagued by private companies defaulting on their debts. So in the past 3 months, 6 different private companies in Shandong province either completely dodged paying off their debts or came dangerously close to doing so.
Well, given that we've seen tons of corporate defaults since the start of last year, what makes this your top story?
So what if I were to tell you that the total outstanding debt of those 6 companies alone amounted to $9.7 billion. Wow. So not only is this a jaw-dropping amount of money, but these horror stories of flaky private companies may very likely scare off even the most seasoned investors. And such a scenario could have huge consequences, particularly due to the province's murky web of cross guarantees between private actors that could jeopardize their credit ratings.
Well, a murky web of anything sounds pretty terrible, but can you explain what exactly a cross guarantee is?
Well, I guess it all makes more sense if we start with Shandong itself. It's long been one of the country's most profitable regions, and back when the economy was thriving, private actors were keen to cash in on all the opportunities floating about, but they faced one key problem, which is accessing capital. So in China, state-owned banks prefer lending to state-owned enterprises, with the idea being that government support means they're less likely to default on their debts. And therefore, in order to get their hands on a loan, private players have had to increasingly strike up cross guarantees with each other. So essentially, these companies agree to guarantee each other's financial obligations.
All right, so it's a bit of you scratch my back, I scratch yours. Sounds like a pretty good way to get your hands on some cash. What's wrong with that?
Well, a 2018 survey suggested these cross-guarantee shenanigans rendered Shandong more vulnerable than other provinces in China. And the problem lies in the fact that these private firms are not obligated to make their liabilities public. So in the event of a default, many investors may question who else may have to pick up the pieces and just how much of the outstanding debt they have to cover. So this opaque string of cross guarantees leaves private companies on thin ice. And as S&P Global Ratings explained the situation, they said that it spreads solvency risks to the entire region, swamping the good credit along with the bad. To illustrate this point, Bloomberg reports that in October, bad news about a debt-ridden corn, steel, and property conglomerate in Shandong dramatically dragged down the bonds of at least 2 seemingly unrelated provincial neighbors after investors got spooked that they could be left responsible.
So is there any chance the government can just step in and clear this mess up?
That remains unclear. Of course, the authorities want to save jobs and uphold economic stability, but that does not mean that they will automatically bail out every problematic company. And Beijing did not intervene in the first defaults in 2014.
All right, well, all that sounds like a very big deal. And indeed, word on the street is that we're going to be covering some of these issues in a special feature later this week.